Hello everybody and welcome back to the FPL Phillips YouTube channel, where it's not often I'm making a video at the moment, but I thought now is quite a pivotal time in the FPL space. This game week 2 has not gone well for some people, it's gone exceptionally well for others, but overall I think a lot of people are contemplating potentially even hitting a wildcard button. There's other things I want to discuss, groups of players. I overall find it quite an exciting time right now, and so I wanted to make a video just to touch on some key points, discuss some key topics, and overall run through a bit of a wildcard draft structure or base structure to build off that if you are activating the chip for, or you're maybe just planning on making a transfer tonight, deciding a bit later, then this video could be for you. So we're going to kick things off straight away with the goalkeepers, which I think is probably the easiest decision maybe to even make on a wildcard if you're activating now. It's to go with Raya in goal, and it's just to have Valdemarson or any other 4.0 really will do as your backup goalkeeper. Now, Raya, so far, well, it's been put by Raptor on Twitter quite eloquently. He used to be a bit of a 2 or 6 point merchant, and I did agree with that. Now, Arsenal have actually arguably been quite fortunate to keep clean sheets in both their games so far. They've not looked as convincing as they have in previous years, especially last season at points. They've had to work for these clean sheets, and Raya has been a big part of that. He is overall just a quality keeper that you're not going to get at other clubs. In FPL, Dean Henderson's, for example, just aren't really performing, so you don't feel confident owning them. Even carrying Raya into these fixtures against Tottenham and Man City, which he's got those games in the next 4 game weeks, I feel more confident with him than any kind of other keeper in the game right now. The 5 million options don't impress me that much. There's a slight argument for Martinez with Villa's fixtures improving. The 4.5s are kind of stinking up the gaff. You could maybe even go with Sells and Nottingham Forest, and I think he'd be my pick of the 4.5s, but I didn't think there was overall that much to discuss there. In defence, though, is where there is a bit more exciting news, and I think that really right now, Trent and the starting with him covered well, but they've been shown to go with Connor Bradley, and Bradley's been getting quite a lot of minutes, and that's why I have got him in here for now, but I could see a world where we go without Trent, and with players like Pedro Porro getting a bit more minutes, getting forward and playing very, very attacking, saving that 1.5 million could definitely be done, and I think someone like a Pedro Porro could maybe even cover Trent's points, and then you could even pick up someone like a Canate if he continues to be first choice alongside Van Dijk as your Liverpool coverage for the defence, if they do actually look like a good back line who are going to keep more clean sheets than we've seen under Klopp. And I think indications to that kind of strategy are there, where you could easily take out one of these 4.5 mil defenders, or even use some of the money in the bank to go with that Canate, maybe even a Van Dijk if you wanted to, and have Porro kind of as your more attacking option of your defenders, because I think he's looked the most threatening, and Connor Bradley is getting minutes as mentioned. So Trent could come off more early. That might mean he banks a few more clean sheets, but it's less time on the pitch for him to get those attacking returns. Having said that, Trent could easily have had 2+ assists already. Diogo Jota's missed 2 good chances from 2 that Trent has created. So on another week, on another year maybe, if those 2 chances have been put away, would I even be having this conversation with you guys? You could easily just go with both. So I think that's another equally good strategy, is just to have both of them in the team. This defence is a little bit bare bones. I think Robinson and Murillo are good picks. That was kind of the reason for not going with the Nottingham Forest goalkeeping option, is that I think Murillo's a good, solid defensive pick. I do also like Aina, who's there, and Nico Williams is good as well. Unfortunately, Moreno's signed, who's a bit more competition for that left-back spot. So Murillo just seems the safe choice at the moment. That's kind of what you want when you're going with a 4.5, and you've got 2 4.0 millions if you choose to go with that as your other 2 defenders. Now, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, so Nedeljkovic, I don't know if that's right. The young 18-year-old right-back at Aston Villa. Looks like he might come in for Matty Cash for a few games. Could go with him as a 4.0 option. There are more certain ones you could go for. Johnson looks like he's gained his place back at Ipswich, but that's a bit up in the air. Either way, Harwood Bellis should be a nailed-on starter to come off the bench for you if need be. The other 4.0 million option you could consider is Mosquera at Wolves as well, who haven't looked impressive, but overall, if you're looking to save money, those are the options you'd be looking at. In midfield is where there's more discussion to be had, I think, and this draft controversially doesn't have Mohamed Salah in the midfield. And I'll kind of talk about that, why I would do that now. And part of it is because, yes, the other midfielders and the attacking wingers at Liverpool are looking good. Jota and Diaz are probably going to come off more early than Salah in most games, but so far they've shown they can kind of cover Salah's points. As much as some people hate that term, you are looking to invest in that attack, and if you can have maybe Jota, maybe even and Diaz, they could definitely earn as many points as Salah's going to, and you could go that way. In teams where I think we've seen you can't really cover the points is Chelsea, and Cole Palmer and the attempt of Nkunku as an option. That's kind of dead in the water now. He's dropping in price tonight, which is part of the reason I'm making this video, is that a lot of people will be looking to go for Rodgers, who's also in this midfield. You've got Palmer, and he just is absolute quality. He's going to be the centre point of that Chelsea team. He's going to get lots of minutes. And so you could go with him. There's the argument for Madueke, who we'll discuss in a moment. But I think overall, Arsenal and Chelsea, you're getting kind of the talisman in those sides a bit more if you go with Saka and Palmer. And like I said, there's options with Madueke. There's an option with Havertz as well at Arsenal, that we'll discuss more with the forwards. But yeah, I think those two are quite key to have at the moment, and they're looking like good picks for me. So Diogo Jota is the one I've gone with. Luis Diaz, as mentioned, is an option too. And then two cheaper midfielders, so Smith Rowe and Rodgers. And I'm just going to caveat that this squad is going to have quite a lot of money in the bank. And then the main point will be around where you'd spend that extra 3 million that we're going to have left over at the end. Because Smith Rowe and Rodgers look like fantastic value at the moment, fantastic enablers to be able to have that money to invest it wherever else in this team you're going to choose to put it. But I think easily having both of them could be viable if you're on a wild card right now. Even having them as a midfield 5 like that, you could go with 3 up front still and have kind of a 3-4-3 with them rotating or taking your pick of the midfielders each week. But personally, I think for 10.5 million there, you've got a really good duo on your hands who are looking in good form. And I'm not sure if Rodgers will go up in price, but with Nkunku looking like he's going to drop, I think Rodgers is the play for me if you're looking for a replacement tonight. And then finally, we'll talk about the forwards. And before we do that, though, we will just jump into having a look at those other midfield options, because I did put some graphics together with some of the punts that I do like the look of. We've got some stats that are a little bit messed up at the moment, not really working out too well, but the more expensive options, Luis Diaz and Madueke, looking very good at the moment. So they're kind of in that 6.5 price upwards. Well, Gibbs White is in there too, actually. Madueke dropped down to 6.4. So those three are kind of in the same bracket. Semenyo is then down there at the 5.5, more of an alternative to Smith Rowe or Rodgers, whereas Diaz, Madueke or Gibbs White would all require a little bit more money for an upgrade. But you could easily go with one of these instead of Smith Rowe or Rodgers in that midfield if you wanted to. I think they all look like good picks. They all look like good options. Gibbs White's got that big plus of having penalties as well at Nottingham Forest, who don't seem like they're going to sign a forward now with the Nketiah deal falling through. So Chris Wood is still there. His minutes are going to be numbered week in, week out. Gibbs White is kind of the main focal point of that Forest side. And we've kind of seen already so far this season how having the key players in the key teams is not only important for minutes, but also going to be pivotal in actually getting those attacking returns as well. So Semenyo's kind of taken up the responsibility to get those attacking returns at Bournemouth. They looked great against Newcastle today when I was watching. And so these are some other picks that do excite me in the midfield that you could easily go for and squeeze into your side. And then the other key decision really is around Rodgers and whether he's the player to go for or whether even Thomas Soucek at West Ham could be the pick. Now, the big thing putting people off this week will be that West Ham go away to the Etihad in game week 3. So it's a very difficult fixture for them this week. So if you're going to need to field whichever replacement you bring in for Nkunku, which is looking likely for a lot of people, then you're going to be put off Thomas Soucek. But he's been a fantastic pick. And if you're on a wild card, then you've got the potential to maybe have both these two instead of Smith Rowe, bench Soucek this week, and just start whichever third forward you end up going with. So easily could go with both of them. Thomas Soucek's been getting forward a lot more, kind of like we saw 2 or 3 seasons ago, more than it was last season where he wasn't very attacking at all. So he looks like a really good option too. I'm excited to see what more we get from him. But yeah, we'll move on to the forwards now. And you might have seen before we've moved off to those graphics, João Pedro is the one I did go with. And just to put on screen so we can see, 3 million is in the bank there with this currently for me, subject to price changes on Sunday, the 25th of August. So this team's got a lot of money to play with. It's just, where do you do that? You could obviously put a bit more into the defence. You could add in an extra 4.5 mil defender. We already discussed how you could spend an extra 1.5, maybe going up to Porro, or 1 million, depending on who you upgrade. You could even bring Trent down to Porro and have even more money to invest in the attack. So I've discussed the possibility of adding in the third forward for a little more attacking depth on the bench. You could have João Pedro as that third forward, and then add in one of the other forwards that we're going to discuss now. So there's a whole realm of possibilities. You could go with those midfield options we talked about over some of the cheaper ones here. You could even use the money, of course, to get Mohamed Salah back in. That would use 2.5 mil of it if you upgrade Saka, or 2 mil if you upgrade Palmer, whichever way you go. But I think a key spot in a lot of people's squads is going to be the forwards, and that's why I've put together a bit of a more complex graphic with a few more statistics for that now. So this is my shortlist of forwards that I think could be good options at the moment. And we'll look at it with the fixtures first of all, but these are the prices actually of these strikers. So you've got a whole range of different prices, Watkins being the most expensive one. With Villa's fixtures looking good now, Watkins is going to become a bit of an option. 9 million for granted, but he's had some great chances so far. His minutes should end up improving, you'd hope, but Duran is going to remain a threat from the bench. And quite a lot of these forwards do either have minutes risks themselves early on this season, or they've not got penalties. There are a few cons that come with kind of each one here, really. So it's making the decision based on a wide range of factors. So you've got some of the cheapest ones, down from Armstrong at 5.5 mil, all the way up to Watkins at 9 million. And picking your second one alongside Haaland, or maybe even your third one, if you're going with a 3-forward formation, could be key. So you've got the minutes so far. Watkins, as you can see, bottom of that, so he's struggled for minutes, only 64 average per game so far. Jackson, again, one struggling. But players like Havertz, Isak, and Solanke, who's only played one game, look like they might be more secure and actually get the more time on the pitch. Now, with penalties, these aren't 100% certain for every single team. I've just gone what I'm assuming. Douglas Luiz has left Aston Villa. We're assuming Watkins is on penalties there. I don't think we've seen a penalty for Spurs this season either. So, Solanke could have those over Son. But again, I'm putting a cross there because I'm predicting that Son will have the penalties for Spurs, being the captain, being on them last season. I don't see much reason for that to change. We've then got non-penalty expected goal involvements per 90, and this is from this season so far, so it's a small sample size, granted, and so you have to take all these stats towards the last three columns with a pinch of salt. But leading the way with that is actually Chris Wood on 0.89 per 90. But he's one of the ones where the minutes are going to be a bit of a struggle. You've got Al-Nai there, maybe Forest will go out and sign another striker, even if it isn't Eddie Nketiah. So 74 average minutes there for him so far, but he's doing well when he's on the pitch. And Forest do still have some nice fixtures coming up. Game week 4 looks good. Game week 5 you maybe want to bench, but then, that does depend on the rest of your team. Whether or not you're going to want to bench him in that type of fixture can depend on which other options you have available to you in your attack and your midfield. In terms of expected FPL points per 90, this is what the table is ordered in. So top is Welbeck, bottom is Solanke, who, as granted, has only played 90 minutes so far. But yeah, Welbeck's looking very good. Could even be an alternative to João Pedro. You've got Evan Ferguson there, who will presumably return at some point in other competition, but as maybe a little more short-term option. I think Welbeck could easily match or outscore João Pedro. You're just thinking that Pedro will probably be the ones on penalties there at Brighton. So that's the order there, and then I've put their actual outcome of FPL points per 90 alongside them, so you can see how they're doing in comparison to their expected points over the first two games. Often this is kind of skewed, as you can see. If players are blanked, they'll just be on 2. Some players might have 1 return. There's really not a big sample size and enough to tell whether a player is significantly outscoring or underperforming on their XG, for example. So that's why I decided to order by expected FPL per 90 instead, albeit still a small sample size there. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think out of these options, which ones you think are the standouts. For me, I still think Armstrong could be a pick. Now, that might be biased. I actually brought him in this week for my team, and he blanked. But Southampton still have some good fixtures coming up. He's still getting decent minutes. He did get subbed off early in game week 2. He is one of the few in this list on penalties, and he is only 5.5 million. So he could give you some more money to upgrade and maybe even try and get that third premium in, if that looks like what the meta strategy, if you will, is moving towards in FPL at the moment. So a lot of these options look good. If you're on a wildcard, you've obviously got that option of bringing back in someone like a Solanke, who will be very low owned now if he's fit, ready and available for game week 3. But I don't think it will be known as the optimal strategy to play a wildcard before an international break, before the transfer windows even closed, really. So there's a lot still up in the air at the moment in FPL, but I think this could end up being a good week to play your wildcard. So I'm interested to know whether or not you guys like this draft, whether you consider going for something like this, where you've got 3 of those premiums, whichever it ends up being. Son, Salah, obviously, are not in this side, but could be good options as well, with ones you could manoeuvre into this team instead of having Saka or Palmer, if those don't take your fancy, or you'd rather go Madueke to cover the Chelsea team, if you will. But yeah, overall, I'm really quite a fan of this team. I'm not sure whether I'll wildcard into it this game week. I am tinker-tangering over that button. My most likely predicament is that I will make the transfer of Nkunku down to Rodgers tonight. Maybe even take a -4 tonight. And then if that ends up backfiring or not looking too good, or I just decide that I want to end up playing the wild card, then it won't make a difference with those free transfers. It's a bit confusing now with everything that happens based on if you use free transfers, whether or not you'll get them back if you've used the wildcard chip. But I'm assuming that if I have my one free transfer, I'll still have it after I use the wildcard, and it won't get used up. I'm pretty sure that's how it works anyway. That's not what you want to hear, uncertainty in someone with an FPL themed channel. But there you go. I'm not going to be truthful and say I am 100% certain of the rules when I'm not. I'm not going to lie, rather. Anyway, I'm getting over my words. You can tell I'm rusty. Haven't made many videos in a while. But thank you very much for tuning in if you have made it this far and are watching me forget how to speak English. But yeah, I do appreciate you tuning in. Make sure to subscribe if you want to catch the FPL content that I do upload. Leave a thumbs up if you did enjoy this one, as I make basically no videos. The algorithm is muddied for me at the moment, so that more than helps me out. So thank you very much for continuing to support my content that I do upload, you guys. So yeah, hope you take it easy. Hope you got a green arrow this game week. I wish you all the best in the future with more of those greens. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one when I see you. Goodbye.